Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Northam Celtic podcast for another week of Celtic goodness. I am joined with your regular host this week's Isaac.
Hello, everyone.
And Dan.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm joined by this week's guest, our manager of Northam Celtic, Adam Cronin.
Good evening.
And now I will hand you over to Isaac.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Cameron. Another week. This will be week 6 of our podcast. So I hope you're enjoying them, as we've managed to, at the moment in time, get them uploaded for about every weekend, which is going good. So this is going to be an episode where we will be talking to our manager and going to find out a bit about him and a bit about his prior experiences to the club and his experiences from the club from when he joined. So it'll be really interesting to find out his point of view. Adam, so welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for being on.
Thank you. It's good to be on.
And I'll kick us off with the routine segment from myself in the flashback result is your first win as manager, which was dated back to the 23rd of September 2018, which is a 4-0 victory against Thrasher. Can you tell us what you remember about that, Adam?
It was a very rainy, typical Sunday morning, Sunday League football game. I can tell you that at half-time I had a very interesting team talk, one that I probably can't use the words again that I used at the time. But for the first 45 minutes, I had watched our opposition create chance after chance after chance. They even missed a header inside the 6-yard box. And I remember seeing the face of the guy that whipped in this beautiful ball for the corner. And he had the look of sadness in his eyes that he wished he'd just been on the end of his own cross.
that is the magic of football. And I don't really know how we went on to win that game, because we didn't deserve it. But we did win. 2 goals from Curtis. And I think rightfully one of them was a bit of a P-roller as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was. The conditions were awful after about 20 minutes. Yeah.
And we were wearing the kits as well that absorbed all the water. So
yes,
it was like treading through treacle, as Mossy said on other podcasts, is it, wearing those kits.
Worst
The
subs
pitch was
experience.
dreadful. Everyone was soaked. I remember Curtis' second goal, an absolute daisy cutter that he mishit. I think he even turned round and moaned something. And then next minute, the ball was in the back of the net, and we don't know how the keepers managed to let it in.
Oh, right. Thank you for sharing us about that result. That was I can just about remember it, because I do remember watching it and thinking, how on earth are we winning this game? They should be beating us. But so do you think you could tell us a bit about your footballing experiences prior to Northam Celtic? So I imagine you've had a bit of a career before that. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So in my younger years, I played mainly for 2 teams. First team that I played for properly on Sundays was 405. I believe they're still going under a slightly different name. They're now 405 Elite. Back then they had 2 teams, first and reserve team. I think I played most of my games to the reserve team back then. We had played with an interesting squad. I used to play centre-back. There weren't that many defenders back in the day. Were
they an Ipswich team? Sorry to interrupt. Were they in any Ipswich league?
Yeah, so they played Sundays.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So, interesting bunch of people. Played for them on and off for a few years. But reserve team, we didn't really get very far. I then took a break for a couple of years, and then when I came back, I was playing for Westbourne Warriors. Again, they had a first and reserve team. I think they still have their home ground at Westbourne High School.
Okay, yeah.
Again, played defensive for them for a few years, had a few cup runs and stuff like that. But again, we were an okay team, but we certainly lost more than we won.
Well, we know all about that, don't we? So it's definitely a bit of a roller coaster. But yeah, no, that's I mean, I've played for a few different teams as well, and you kind of do get a bit of an experience. And it's nice to kind of you get to see how football's kind of changed over the years as well. I mean, I've kind of only known this sort of era of Sunday football, but I've played a lot of youth football and it was completely different. So it's it's interesting to hear. You've probably seen a lot as well over those times as well. Yeah, definitely. Mr. Abbott, you have the next question.
Yeah. So overall, when you first joined Northam Celtic, what were the impressions that you got, and at both times? So when you joined as a manager and when you first as a player.
Okay, so when I first played for the club was actually many years ago. I got involved initially with Northern Celtic through Ben Frost's brother-in-law, Chris, who used to play in the wing for Northern Celtic for many years. I think probably about 4 or 5 years he played for the club. And back then, it was a little bit different with the player forms. So they didn't have pictures of people on there. You just went by names. So there's a couple of times that I got a last-minute call-up and I played under the alias of Ben Frost.
A man of many talents.
A man of many talents, yeah.
Many faces by the sound of things.
I remember getting the phone call mid-Sunday morning asking if I'd go to Felixstowe and just jump in with the game. I hadn't really played with the guys at all before that. And there was a little Scottish chap they had playing for him at the time called Wee Man. And I got changed, and literally there's a kit for me at the sideline, chucked the kit on, and then he shouted to me, he said, you're Ben Frost. And I was like, no, I'm not Ben. And he was like, you're Ben Frost. And I was like, what's this guy on about? I've never met this guy before in my life. He's got to be confused with somebody else. So anyway, the ref comes over and says, what's your name? And before I could get the words out, Wee Man shouts over, it's Ben Frost, ref. So that was how I played that day. Maybe not so legitimate, but that's what happened.
But you definitely had the repetition of knowing who Ben was. And I think you must have met him afterwards. You think, well, you don't look like me at all. So.
Yeah, it was actually a few years later when I finally met Ben Frost and I realised we didn't look that similar.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so moving on, Adam, what made you decide to go into management?
When I started playing for Northern Celtic, I actually injured myself in pre-season. And I went to see the physio, and they give you sort of the chat of, you're getting a little bit older now, you're in your 30s.
About your pension.
Yeah, your hip might be next, could be the ankle, yeah. So, I was really looking forward to get back into playing, but I injured myself pre-season. I don't even think I got a touch of the ball before, I crumpled my knee in a heap. And then as part of coming back to it, the current manager at the time asked if I wanted to join on as assistant manager because I did know some of the faces and some of the guys were there already. So when that manager stepped down, I was then given the opportunity to manage.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think that that game was another one of injuries, as Cameron can remind us. Cam, do you remember that pre-season game?
Yeah, I remember. I nearly got yellow carded on 2 separate occasions for a handball where the ball went out for an actual throw-in, and then the ref turned around and called it back for a handball. And then I think I went in for a tackle, and I was sort of, in all fairnesses, it was a sort of semi-foul because I went in sort of to the side of him, not really stepping over the ball. But then I fell in such a way that my other leg ended up behind him. He took a step back and he stepped onto my kneecap. And I remember that hurt quite a lot. But then the ref walked over and started shouting at me saying, "Get up, you're not very injured." And then about 2 minutes later, I remember I was subbed off on the bench looking for the deep heat. So
nothing like you in your injury-prone moments, eh, Cam?
Yeah.
So Adam, as we know, have established you are our manager, but also a prolific coach when it comes to training. So as a coach, what type of values do you have for a team? What do you try and reflect from yourself onto our team that you manage?
First of all, I think everyone's got to work hard for the team. So
Yeah,
there's is quite a few teams out still playing Sunday morning football. Some of them aren't the best teams in the world, and probably the most experience that I've gained from watching other teams is when I used to play six-a-side when I was younger. There's a team and they've been together for about 10 years. They weren't technically the best set of players as individuals, but they all worked really hard for each other, and that actually led to them to be, top of most of the six-a-side divisions in Ipswich. So that's one thing that I learned is the work rate between each player. Everyone has to do their bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, like you say, is you play to your own strengths, don't you? And you, by doing that, you can actually play well. And by working for each other, it's got that kind of togetherness that does always beat talent. And I said this in my podcast, in my episode. I said that, hard work will beat talent every day. If everyone on the pitch works hard, you'll beat players that are talented because you are putting more in than they are, which we've seen countless times. But I think that's a really important thing for players to have and to look on. And I know that players like Dan and Cam and myself, we will all give 110% every week that we can. And but yeah, brilliant. Mr. Abbott, over to you.
Yeah. So since joining the club, what would you say has been your biggest challenge?
Okay, so I guess it's adapting from being one of the players to being the manager. One of the hardest things that you have to do is, I guess, delivering some not always positive news. So a lot of the times, if somebody wants some feedback on their performance, sometimes that feedback isn't necessarily going to be positive. It's going to be constructive, and we want to help people improve. But it's not quite as easy as it sounds, because you want everyone to feel welcome. You want to try and boost everyone's ability and their skill and the way that they gel with the other players around them. But sometimes the message is going to be, today I don't think was your best game. Today I think these are the bits that you need to improve on, so on and so forth. So sometimes that's difficult. It's not necessarily the way that the words that you use, but the way that you word things. And obviously, if you're delivering that sort of message to someone, you still want to find a way to deliver it positively, especially with the emotions of the day and everything in the result. That's probably the thing that I found the most difficult to find a happy balance for.
It's definitely something that being your assistant as well is something that I've been watching you and learned how to adapt to, because from teaching as well, it's very similar. So I learn a lot of that through my job, but it is a really tough thing to do. But it also highlights the adversity of the players in your squad and how they cope with the criticism and the praise as well, and how to deal with it in the correct manner.
Because it does help when you find out what you need to improve, because it sort of spurs you on in the next game and in training to improve on what you need to. And it does, you got to look at the bigger picture, haven't you? You can't really just focus on the negative. You just got to turn it into the bigger picture, and it helps everyone out, including yourself.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So Adam, Sunday League has a lot of good and bad moments, but what is your best Sunday League moment? This could be as a player or as a manager, or both.
Best Sunday League moment. For me, that's a simple one. For those who were with us last year, you will remember the infamous Warwick penalty. This is a moment that I think is actually sealed in stone in history. It's
a milestone for a lot of the world.
It is, yeah. It was a great football match, and we won a penalty. And I remember we had Mick there on the sidelines. He'd been running the line for us again, as he always steps up and does when he can. And I didn't even have to make the call about getting Mick on the pitch. One of the players said, no, I'm coming off. Get Mick on to take this penalty. And his eyes lit up, The boots were, I didn't even know the boots were on, but the boots were on.
He was raring to go.
The kick was on. He was straight on there. Referee took his name. And his first kick of the ball was literally touched the penalty in the top corner. Keeper did not have a chance. But it was just the reaction of all the players at the time. Everyone sort of ran over, bundled him over. Everyone was, laughing, shouting, cheering. Mick had a beaming smile on his face. Yeah, it was a great moment for everyone at the club.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, being there, it was absolute scenes. I think, Cam, you were injured at the time when you were there, and I remember even you, with your injury, you were still on the pitch, sprinted over across and jumped on top of Mick.
I think I was wearing a big old jacket as well.
He absolutely loved it, and it was really good. And I think we're definitely going to try and get Mick on this because he's a bit of a club hero and has a lot of stories to tell. But I don't think he's ever going to live that down as well. I think he'll always remind us about that penalty. But so coming off of that, like as Dan said, Sunday League is full of moments, whether they be weird and wonderful or encouraging and elating. But what is the proudest moment of your managing career so far for Northam over the 2 seasons that you've done?
So I could probably draw the best experience on the current or the just finished season.
Mm-hmm.
I remember our first game of that season, and I remember being later than I'd wanted to be after I'd run around to pick players up. And I looked across the changing room and I thought, it's going to be a tough day because there are some players here that have never met each other before they rocked up in this changing room today. And we've got to go and play a team that were relegated from the division above us. They want to get straight back there, and it's going to be a tough day. And it was a tough day. We put on a brave face. We put in as much as we could give on the day, but the result didn't go our way. But ever since then, there's been this real determination from this squad to say, do you know what? We're better than this, and we can keep improving these results as we keep grinding it out, and we keep doing that as a unit. And every time I see them play, they give a little bit more. They find that little extra edge of quality, that little extra edge of determination. That little bit more fight in them, and that has helped to improve the results as the season's gone on, to the fact where we've been playing top teams and coming off the pitch complaining that we didn't get something out of the game, and these are teams that have been stuffing other teams in our division.
But yeah, I think that it's a shame the season ended when it did, because the last 3 games of the season I think were some of our better performances, and I think we would have pushed on to beat the teams that we were playing, because we played all of the top half teams, and I think that was the hardest thing, is we knew we had some teams that we could get points out of in the next sort of 4, 5, 6 games, but unfortunately things ended the way they did. But I think it was almost a good thing to finish knowing that we have that potential, because everyone will have the hunger to bite on again for next season.
Definitely.
Mr. Abbott again.
Yeah, so if you had to take a sit back at the moment and look at the team, and you were thinking, right, I need this certain sort of type of player, I want to bring in this certain type of player to perhaps drive the team forward, get a little bit more competition in there, what sort of players would you be looking to recruit?
Okay, that's an interesting one. So for our squad for the previous seasons, we've had sort of selective players with pace, so like prolific wingers or strikers or wing backs, etc. But for the season just gone, we've actually got a real mixture of pace across the board, which has been an interesting element, and that has changed the way that we play. Probably the thing that sticks out for me the most, though, is that we only have a couple of sort of, height-blessed players. When we've got Rudders in playing centre-back, he wins most of everything in the air, and 9 times out of 10, he doesn't even have to jump. So we could really do with a little bit more height in the middle of the park. Most of Sunday football play is that Stoke style, hit long and hope with, an old crouchy man up top.
Yeah.
And we've got that in terms of defence, but we could probably do with another Another tall player to win a few more of those aerial battles in the middle of the park, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need a bit of a Manute Bowl style player if we were going to look at the NBA. We need a 7-foot-7 player through the middle just to. Yeah, we've got rudders is the Manute Bowl.
Yeah, so Adam, we've spoken in like the previous podcast because we do mention it quite a lot, but like our aspirations for next season is definitely try and push up the table, get a top finish, and potentially promotion. So, what are your aspirations for the club next season?
Yeah, really along the same lines. When I look at the squad of players that we've got at the moment, we've got some real quality in there, but it has taken us a little bit of time to gain that belief of the quality that we had. Like I said, it was a tough start to the season, and as Isaac says, it is a shame that the season has had to finish up at the time that it has, because we were gaining a real momentum, and like I said, we were starting to feel hard done by about not getting results against teams at the top of the division. So next season, the belief's got to be there again. If we can string together the performances like we've been digging out, then we'll find ourselves up there as one of the top teams. We've got the quality across the park. As a set of individual players, we've got players within this squad that could happily jump up 2 or 3 divisions and still get into a team. So, yeah, we've got a lot of quality there, and we just need to keep going to display that we've got the ability and the mentality to, show the spot in the table that we actually deserve.
What's really interesting about that point you say about having players that could play higher divisions up, I think that's a real proud thing to look at, because the fact that they're wanting to stay and play with us, even though that they could go higher, I think that says a lot about us as a team and an environment we create. We create this welcoming environment for players to be a part of all abilities, and they want to stay. And I think that's crucial to this team and to having that kind of mixed diversity of ability, which really has, affected us, and not just with the playing attributes, but also with the character. A lot of players with their character has helped us get through games with the way that they are on the pitch and off the pitch, which is really, really brilliant. Before we come to conclude, Adam, I'd just like to ask you a question. I know that you played a game up at the Gainsborough hockey pitch. The Gainsborough football pitch, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about an incident that took place.
Yes, so many years ago, when I was playing for 405, we used to have friendly matches up on the full hockey pitch, so we call it, of Gainsborough. And we had a guy that would come and train with us, and he was partially sighted. His name was Tom. Really lovely, friendly chap. He used to come along and play. He used to score some goals. Pretty decent footballer, to be honest with you. And then as one of the training sessions, the 405 guys had arranged a friendly against Northam Celtic. So obviously I'd been in and around the guys a few times before. Like I said, played under the alias of Ben Frost, so I knew a couple of the guys. And that,
the miss.
So we had this friendly, and there was a 50-50 challenge between Tom and one of the Northern Celtic guys called Macca. Now, Macca was like a full-blooded, wholehearted midfielder. Never known the guy to back out of a tackle. So anyway, these guys go, horn to horn, going for this tackle on the hockey pitch. And I'm guessing Macca, didn't like the style of the tackle or whatever, thought he'd come up a little worse. So anyway, he gets up into Tom's face, starts to have it out with him. So literally within seconds, he's surrounded by the 405 guys, like people dragging him away, like shouting, "What the hell are you doing? Do you know anything about this guy?" And he's like, no, he came in hard on this tackle, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I said to the 405 guys, I said, look, let me speak to Macca. So I took Macca to one side and I said, I'm guessing that you don't know this, but Tom is actually partially sighted.
Oh,
And he
no.
paused, and I watched the colour drain from his face.
Oh, no.
And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, the guys have reacted like this because he's partially sighted and they think, you know. And he was like, no, I had no idea. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm so embarrassed. Oh, what have I done? I need to go and apologise. So I was like, look, it's all right. So it's a genuine mistake. I said, you wouldn't know that Tom was partially sighted unless you played with this before. I said, you know, it's just, an unlucky event that's happened. So anyway, he went over and apologised. And then, Tom was like, no, honestly, we're here to play football. You know, we're just having a mess around the laugh. So he got, but poor old Macca, he couldn't let it go. He wanted to go. He was like, I'm really sorry, guys. I've embarrassed myself. I've embarrassed the team. I've got to go. I'm really so sorry. But, luckily, Tom, he said, look, it's just a silly misunderstanding. We'll get over it. All the 405 guys got over it. But I'm pretty sure that the Northam Celtic guys probably kept ribbing poor Macca about it for months afterwards. But it was funny after the event, but it was one of those where you had to be there sort of things. But
we've had many of them. It's it does make me laugh because it is one of them things that you do have to be there for, and we've also seen things that happen like that. But that's brilliant, and it's great to sort of hear all these different stories. And it's been really nice, and I think for players that could be interested in signing, and then players for the club that don't know you as well, I think this has been a really interesting insight into a bit more about you and to understand the way you do things and the way you are, which has been really nice to hear about. And I know, speaking from the player's point of view here, it's really good to see how committed the squad is to the development of the team. And what's really nice is how on this podcast, like I say, we've had the chairman on, we've had yourself on, we've had us three at the start. It shows how much of a club we are as together, which is an absolute pleasure to play for. So, Adam, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to hear your story and a bit about your perspective about the club.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. It's been great.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Cameron, do you want to sign us out, big man?
Yeah, well, thank you everybody for your continuing support and watching of the Northam Celtic podcast. We're finished here for another week. It's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Isaac.
Peace and love, guys.
Goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye, and remember, if you want us to debate anything or talk about anything, just leave it in the comments down below.
And it's goodbye from our special guest this week, Adam.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
And
See
we'll
you
be
later,
back
everyone.
next week. Goodbye.
Bye.